Latinos make up 30% of Major League Baseball, but there are no teams south of the border, at least until today. I have created a new custom team, the Mexico Mariachis, and they will be replacing the Colorado Rockies, who have finally been kicked out of the league. Of course, this team is very bad as it is, but we're about to get a lot worse because any player on the roster must be from a Latin American country. Now, taking a wild guess here, I don't think most of these guys make the cut, and as punishment for us, we're trading all of the rejects within our own division. As expected, gutting this roster puts us in pretty bad shape, but at least we still have players like Ezequiel Tovar and German Marquez, at least for now. Considering how bad this team is, this is a long-term rebuild that Tovar might not want to be a part of, as Fernandez doubles, and after all of the trades, he's one of our few decent prospects. I'm really hoping there's at least a few building blocks on this roster as we take a 2-1 lead, so all things considered, this is a great start, and we're very lucky to have German Marquez. Most of the players on our team have C and D potential, so we have no future stars in our farm system, which is why we're relying on the draft. We will definitely spend a lot of time in scouting, but for now, opening day is going very well, and this is crushed into center field, going back with one on base. Does it have the distance? It does for our first home run. Our first baseman, Edwin Rios, might have just put the game on ice, but I speak too soon, as Marquez gives up a 3-run shot, and our bullpen sucks, so the Mariachis come up short in their first game ever. That is disappointing, but in these first few seasons, we do have to be realistic about our expectations, as we are 0-4, so of course we're moving on to scouting, and the big kicker with this is just like the rest of our roster, I can only scout guys from Latin America. That definitely narrows our options, so we're just gonna scout all international pitchers, but for the position guys, that gets a little bit more tricky, although I see we have the number 4 pick in the draft, which is certainly a nice start. This right fielder, Robbie McBeth, looks pretty solid with good potential and overall, and just like so many prospects we're gonna find, he's also from Dominican Republic. As you can tell by this graph, we need pretty much everything except for shortstop, although that may change depending on what we decide to do with Ezequiel Tovar. It would be nice to start our rebuild with a core piece for the future, but as a 5-tool, very talented shortstop, he's gonna have a lot of trade value, and we definitely need prospects. We finally won our first game of the season over 2 weeks into the year, and after a week of scouting, it seems Robbie McBeth is a pretty good option at number 4, especially with that contact. That is key. At least in MLB The Show, contact is probably the most important simulation stat in the game, and can ultimately determine if guys develop properly or not, so that's why I'm not scouting guys like George Diaz, as I really don't want to waste my time. On the other hand though, there's another international catcher, Chris Cutliff from Jamaica, and that's a player I can definitely scout. But on the pitching side of things, we definitely need to discover some players, especially later in the draft, because so far this class is not looking very deep. That's a big deal because our pitching is terrible outside of Marquez, as he put our team in position to win this game against Washington, as we do. So shockingly, we've actually won 4 games. That sounds like sarcasm, but I'm genuinely very surprised, as Yanquiel Fernandez is playing great so far and might win Rookie of the Year. But on the other side of the coin, our apparent star Ezequiel Tovar is really struggling, hitting 163. After a week of scouting, our scouts are not set on Chris Cutliff, as his rank goes down, so I'm still trying to find a gem, going to second base, and maybe Walter Gillett is the guy. Then fortunately, in the later rounds, we found a couple discovery pitchers, Eddie Tejada and Albert Fernandez, who are both from Venezuela. With the state of our roster, season 1 will be pretty fast as we keep losing games, but at least in our next week of scouting, we find an absolute gem, Marcos Lima, who's guaranteed to come in with high potential and could be a future starter. After a week of scouting him, no surprise, he is the exact player we thought he was, so he instantly becomes a top target. Finally, for the first time of the year, our discovery scouts did some work, finding center fielder Freddie Fabregas, and right now he's ranked as the number 10 player in the class, which would be so massive for us. I feel like I'm very prepared for my first draft, as there are 3 guys that I would love to take at number 4, and if we can't get any of them, the guy we just scouted, Freddie Fabregas, would be a great safety pick. Our board obviously isn't super big, but there are more prospects on it than I ever expected, so there's only a few picks until our first selection, but there goes the first Latino. If he was still available, I might have taken Alfonso Tejera, but right after that pick, Seattle drafted a guy from Pennsylvania, so our board is very much still intact, and I have to decide which one of these guys I want. I think it's a no-brainer. Even though Robbie McBeth is 4 years older, that potential and overall combo definitely beats Walter Gillett, so he is far too good to pass up in this spot. He is our first selection of the rebuild. In round 2, we're selecting at pick number 41, and I'm really hoping that Freddie Fabregas falls, as some discovery guys do. However, in the very unlikely event that he doesn't, I'll stay true to my board, selecting either one of these 3 pitchers or double up at outfielder with Marcos Lima. At the end end of the first round though, nobody has taken him, which is a big surprise, and he survives to pick number 41, so now I have to make a decision. Because he's not been selected, there's a chance that nobody else discovered him, and while he would be an instant starter, we definitely need starting pitching, and there's only 2 guys remaining that I'm very confident in. Lou De La Cruz especially looks like a good option, and he's probably not going to last much longer, so that is very tempting, but in the end, I think Fabregas is our guy. I do not want to miss out on a prospect of this caliber. It would be a miracle for either of these guys to last to our next selection, so I'm just going to rip off the band-aid, and sure enough, Lou De La Cruz is still available. There's no way. He was my favorite pitcher out of the 2 guys, and he's a lefty, so we got extremely lucky. I'm going to take him. Welcome to the Mariachis. Things are looking up as I get 2 high-floor outfielders and a starting pitcher, but the best part about this is we are 3 selections away from our next pick. The number 1 player on my board is Eric Green, who's really not that special at all, and because we already have so many outfielders, why not go for an 18-year-old starting pitcher? At the very least, he's going to be a flyer for us. That is a low-risk move, especially because I don't really like a lot of the position guys on the board, beside from maybe Mario Montevallo, and in round 4, he is still on the board, and while I've already taken 2 corner outfielders, we could really use a switch-hitting, guaranteed high-potential 18-year-old. I am making this move, and we'll see if it works out. I definitely prefer the upside over Eric Green, and now in round 5, we take a flyer on Arturo Gonzalez, before ending off with the last player on my board, a relief pitcher also with the last name Fabregas. Before this video, I had never seen that last name in my life, and I've seen it twice in one draft. I really hope those players are good because we are 15-81 at the break, and checking out the stats, it's easy to see why, as Ezequiel Tovar's at least bounced back with an okay season, but him, along with rookie Yanquiel Fernandez, are tied for the team lead in RBIs at 28, as we are in last place for total runs, trailing the White Sox by over 100. This might be the worst team in baseball history, as our rotation only has 1 guy under a 5 ERA, and of course, our bullpen is also not looking good at all. I'm also about to make things a lot worse, trading away our 1 decent starter, Herman Marquez, who's in the final year of his contract, so it probably makes sense to trade him while we can. Fortunately for us, Baltimore is seeking a decent starting pitcher, and while this return won't be a big one, there's a couple decent prospects I'd be interested in adding. After weighing my options, I nearly pulled the trigger on a deal for Jordan Adams, but then I had a better idea. One of their top prospects, Cody Mayo, has been called up to the show, and sitting behind him is Ramon Arias, who is already a pretty established player at 30 years old, but he would immediately give us a decent bat with 2 years before free agency, which I think is a pretty good deal for both sides, and they accept it. That is the only move I'm making at the deadline, so now it's time to get these draft picks signed, because this big reveal might be the only good thing that happens this year, so I'm really hoping for the best. No pressure, but this literally determines the future success of our franchise, so I am going straight in, and that's what I like to see. The big fish, Robbie Macbeth, fell to us at number 4, and he is a 74 overall with 87 potential and great contact, and with this skill set, he might already be our best hitter and should get the call up very soon. That is a big hit to start the franchise, and it looks like we are 2 for 2 as Freddie Fabregas comes in right behind him at 72 overall and looks to be our center fielder of the future. He is a very athletic defensive center fielder, which is what we need to replace Brenton Doyle, and while he's never going to hit dingers, that's not really his game, so that is an amazing selection. Then with our 3rd selection, we got so lucky that Lou De La Cruz was still on the board, as he's coming in with 89 potential at 60 overall with pretty good per 9s. I'm expecting him to develop pretty quickly and be in the show within the next 3 years, and the same goes for our next selection, Albert Fernandez, who's a C potential, which is kind of a bummer, but the reason I took him was for his high floor and 64 walks per 9. That is another great selection for the Mariachis in their first draft ever, as we then went back to outfielder with 18-year-old Mario Montevallo, and while he is a long-term project, I do like what I see. It looks like we didn't have a single 90 potential, which is a bit of a letdown, but I'm not complaining, as we took what our board gave us and drafted exactly what we needed for this new franchise, including 2 high-floor pitchers to close it out. Our first 2 picks of that draft would already be 2 of our best players, and now that we're over 100 losses, I don't think there's much more to see. We're simming to the end of the year. To no one's surprise, we finished 24-138. That is the worst record of all time, and of course, there are very few positives, but Ezequiel Tovar did hit 22 home runs, and our best rookie, Yanquiel Fernandez, led the team in RBIs. Thankfully, we found at least one piece for the future, as he's up to B potential, but aside from that, the only guys I'm really trying to bring back are Emmanuel Valdez and Ramon Arias. Just to show you guys how bad we were, we finished dead last in runs, significantly behind the White Sox, who of course, prior to our existence, were the worst team in the league by far. more. In free agency, being limited to players only from Latin American countries is a much tougher restriction than I thought, as there are really only a few options for us down the board, which should make this very interesting. Also, since we are rebuilding, a guy like Framber Valdez doesn't make a lot of sense, so at least for season 1, we're sticking to the low-risk value players with good potential to see if they can develop into something. Starting off, we add Andrew Monasterio to the board, along with Brian De La Cruz, who does look pretty good, and thankfully, he will not cost us a lot of money. I'm trying to fill out the roster with as many Latino players as I can, but unfortunately, I'm not finding that many in free agency. But before we do anything else, it is time for the lottery. After a 24-win season, we better get the #1 pick as we simulate ahead, and let's go. I feel like I never get the #1 pick, so I'm definitely thankful for the good luck, as it's time for the Rule 5 draft. And once again, it is surprisingly hard to find players from Latin America. This draft is always a great place to get starting pitchers and relievers, but as you can see, all these guys are from the US. But at least for the relievers, there's a few more options, as Alzolay and Hernandez are both here. Ideally, I'd like to take them both, starting with Hernandez since he's a little younger, and along with them, I'm also taking a catcher, Tomas Nido. This will be a 10-player Rule 5 class, which certainly makes up for our inactivity in free agency. And it's fair to say we found some pretty interesting pieces as we completely overhaul our bullpen and then end the draft with a potential 34-year-old third baseman. Also, immediately after the draft, we signed Andrew Monasterio, along with Santiago Espinal, who I lowballed. That is great news in the middle of February, but as we approach the end of the offseason, German Marquez has not been signed. Even though we traded him last year, I would be interested in bringing him back, so I give him a 2-year deal, which he signs. Here is our lineup going into season 2, and even though it doesn't look like it, it is very improved because of the fact that everyone here is above C potential. The same goes for our rotation, as we also bring back our ace from last year as our biggest signing, but of course, after him, the rest of our rotation is very bad, so I'm expecting another terrible year. We also greatly improved our farm system, as our entire first draft is on the team, and these guys are going to be very exciting. We currently have 5 players in the top 100, and I'm not afraid to bring them up to the show sooner rather than later if they play well at the minor league level. #4 overall pick, Robbie Macbeth, will probably be the first guy we send up, but just like I do in all my videos, I'm naming him after one of my YouTube channel members. He will now be known as Ray Marte, and our 2nd round pick, Freddie Fabregas, might also come up this year, so I need to rename him as well. His new name is Paco Chacon. It is opening day of season #2 for the Mariachis, and after cutting almost our entire team, I am really hoping for improvement as Ramon Arias starts us off with a double. Of course, last year we acquired him in the German Marquez trade, but now Marquez is back on the team, so we basically got him for free, as he becomes our first run of the new year, and there are 2 on for Ildemaro Vargas, who lines us into center field where it does not get down. Unfortunately, we leave 2 runs on the board, which is not acceptable, because with how bad our team is, we're gonna need all the help we can get, and you have got to be kidding me, this will be a triple. We had the lead for half an inning, so the game is tied, but we have 2 runners on base, so we have a chance to pull back in front, as here's a full count, De La Cruz walks. That means once again, the pressure is on Vargas, who does deliver, and I know he's 34 years old, but he's still developing and has a potential. The best case scenario is that he becomes a trade piece as Tovar homers, so our offense and Marquez are both looking great as we keep finding ways to get on base. De La Cruz can put this on ice with the bases loaded, but that's at least a sac fly, so we have taken a 3-run lead, and now it's up to our bullpen to hold it down. This is the part of the video that always makes me nervous, as there's a single, but we do get out of it, so the Mariachis start out season 2 with a win. What a start from Marquez, as we're doing better than I expected, and now we're in a close game against the Nationals, who are also pretty bad. They just took the lead in the 8th, so we're looking for a spark, but this will not get down, as our team might be a bit better, but it's clear we are still the worst in the league. We are still the laughingstock of MLB, but Vargas might have just saved us with a deep drive into left field. There's no way. That was absolutely crushed, so we're taking this one to extra innings, and it might not seem like a big deal, but winning a game like this would be big for our confidence, as that is a nice play. They would have taken the lead if that grounder got through, so I'm glad it didn't, as we have a chance to walk it off, but there are 2 outs for Arias, who gets hit. That brings up Ezequiel Tovar, our best player, and he's pretty good at hitting lefties. As he goes the other way, this will get down and score the game-winning run. So far, Mexico has won a game in every series they've played, but now we have a chance to win our first series in franchise history. We are simulating ahead, and it's another close one. We have a 1-0 lead in the 7th. All we need to do is keep it. We simulate ahead, and let's go. Don't look now, but the Mariachis are 4-4, and that takes us into scouting for the first time of the year, where we have 2 international shortstops at 2 and 3, and they are both from Mexico. This could end up working out very well well for us, so I'm going to scout both of them. And unlike last year, where most of the top prospects were not from Latin America, we've got 3 guys from Mexico. That is very exciting, but above all else, I think we need to address starting pitching, as we don't have many options for the future. And unfortunately, just like last year, it seems the international class is not doing us any favors, so this could be another interesting draft. We take our first sweep of the year against the Mets, but win a series against Philadelphia, so it seems our new lineup is gelling much better than I expected. But look at Timmy Esparza, he might be my selection. I always look for good contact, and he certainly has it, along with great speed, and that would make the Ezequiel Tovar situation very interesting, as I would have a real reason to trade him away. I really like the idea of taking him at number 1, but I do need to weigh the rest of my options, as we're in a division series against Arizona and just tied the game. If you've been tracking baseball this season, you know just how good this division is, as Arizona just handed us the lead, and this would be a huge win for us, as they're not quite the Dodgers, but still really good. Ramon Urias scored another run, followed by De La Cruz, so he scored 4 runs in the 7th inning, but here come the Diamondbacks. Ketel Marte goes deep, and the bases are loaded. This is terrifying, but Hernandez does get out of the inning, so it all comes down to our closer Montero, and there we go. We have won a game in the very competitive NL West, so we are 7-13 about a month into the season, but it looks like our offense still has a lot more room for improvement. Ramon Urias has no doubt been our best offensive player, so I'm glad I made that trade, but just like last year, Tovar is off to a pretty slow start. I might actually trade him, and I feel much better knowing that there are plenty of shortstop options in the first round, as we win another series, this time against Seattle, which I cannot believe, and there's another victory. It is so encouraging to see games like this one where we actually score runs, as we put up 15 against San Francisco. So in just our second season, there's a strong chance we don't finish with the worst record in baseball, which would certainly be a win. And on the scouting end of things, our discovery guys found a pitcher I really like. With a walks per 9 like this, I might rank Brian Castro as the best player on my board so far, as both of the shortstops are definitely very good, but we really need a high quality starter. We're looking to win another series, this time against the Marlins, who we should be pretty even with. However, it seems an unfortunate double play is gonna hurt us, at least until De La Cruz goes deep. That makes this game a lot more interesting, as this is crushed into deep right center field by Espinal, sending them back, but it's not far enough. That takes us down to our final out, where Monasterio hits a line drive to right field, sending this into the gap where it drops for a double. So Tovar has the chance to be the hero, but once again, we come up short. Our best player continues to struggle at the plate, and I'm a bit concerned he has already hit his ceiling, as he's starting to regress at 24 years old. That is ridiculous. We have all been asking for regression to be fixed for years now, but it is still just as bad. But now Mexico's being tested against Chicago and go up by 2. Honestly, with the way things are going, I might be trading Tovar at the deadline, because he has only been just as good as Ramon Urias, who's a 71 overall, and of course, right on cue, he goes deep. After losing the series to Miami, we beat Chicago, but most notably in that game, German Marquez went 8 innings, dropping his ERA below 3. Obviously, it's too early to tell, but early on, this is looking like a career year, as him and rookie Kent Samuel are carrying a rotation that's otherwise been very bad. We continue to scout players, but slowly we're running out of options, which makes me a little nervous, especially because I'm really struggling to find late round options. However, in our next week of discovery, we found 2 new players, so I really hope they're somewhat good. As we're going to our recently scouted, that is not a good start, so I'm really hoping the second guy is a little bit better. And there we go, Sean Ashley is the number 11 player in the class. Admittedly, when I first saw his name, I didn't think we'd be allowed to draft him, but he was born in DR, so I'm wasting no time throwing him on the board. Now at the start of June, we're in a tie game against the Pirates, and Tovar continues to heat up as he gives us the lead, and we're very close to putting them away. We are already approaching last year's win total, but unfortunately this will go on a bit longer. As the Pirates drive in the tying run with 2 outs, this could be trouble, laying out for it. Nice play. That was a tough play for Fernandez, who might have just saved us, as we drive in the go-ahead run in the 10th, and winning more of these close games might be the biggest difference between this year's team and last year's. Unfortunately though, we are tied again, so we are once again calling on Ezequiel Tovar, who turns on this one into left field, and that is crushed for a 2-run bomb. What an insane game, and now I feel very confident with a 2-run cushion as we close it out, securing another close victory. That was a big game for Ezequiel Tovar, who is now back over a 250 average, which is a great start, but unfortunately, after a week of scouting Sean Ashley, he gets a lot worse. That is a bit of a bummer, but now the bad news continues as we scout the number 1 player in the class, but he's from Japan. He would have been a great player to add, but the bright side about this is there are still many more international pitchers that we can draft, and I'm actually feeling pretty good about the class, as there's some gems laid later on. At the start of July, we have 27 wins, and that is already 3 more than last year in the first half. This is already great improvement from last year, and we're going to have a chance to make an even bigger impact at the draft as I finish scouting 2 gem players who we're definitely going to target. Good shortstops like Timmy Esparza do not come around very often, so he's going to be my first pick. But of course, because Brian Castro is a discovery guy, I'm really hoping he falls to our next selection. After that, it might just be a matter of best player available, as I really like the idea of taking Rico Castro if he falls, along with one of these 2 closers, as that is always a safe bet in the draft. There's also Michael Gonzalez, who looks like a potential catcher of the future with that power, along with center fielder Henry Zambrano, who I'm a bit lower on, but he can really fly. We are wasting no time taking our guy at number 1 overall. That is the easiest pick I will ever make. But now the big question we're faced with is, did anybody else discover Brian Castro? If they did, he will get taken in the first round and definitely won't last until our next selection at 38. And I am not gonna wait. I am simulating ahead, and sure enough, he's still there. I got a bit nervous when somebody came off the board, but Rico Castro goes at 27. So the guy I would have been perfectly happy taking at number 1 falls into our lap at 38, and we officially take 2 of our top 4 players on the board. That is massive. We also have the next selection, which is very fitting. And checking out the board, we lost our top closer option, which honestly was expected. However, David Saucedo is still pretty good, and he's our next pick. Now at 79, Zambrano and Michael Gonzalez are still on the board, although our scouts do prefer Gonzalez, and I think he has very good upside. We already drafted 3 outfielders last year, and Zambrano's potential is a lot lower, so I am okay missing out on him, as he does go off the board before our next selection. But my second favorite discovery pitcher is still on the board, and he is the easy choice. Villafuerte is a high floor pitcher with a very good walks per 9, and at this point in the draft, the rest of my board are all discovery guys, so shout out to our scouts for doing a good job. After missing out on a Zambrano earlier, we take another one who might be just as good, and there are 4 pitchers on the board with our last pick, so I'm taking the guy with the best walks per 9. It is Frank Santiago. Getting the number 3 and number 4 player on my board already makes this a great draft, and I'm very excited for all of those guys to join a farm system that is already developing very nicely. We are 30-66 at the All-Star break, which to no one's surprise is baseball's worst record, and honestly it's a bit disappointing because looking at our stats, the only player aside from Ezequiel Tovar playing half decent is Andrew Monasterio. Even though it's good to see that he's improving, other players like Yanquiel Fernandez, Brian De La Cruz, and Eldemaro Vargas have taken a step back. Then in our rotation, Marquez surprisingly has a winning record, and this undrafted rookie Kent Samuel is not playing bad either. We have a long way to go, so the rest of the season's gonna move pretty fast, but before we sim to the end, there's one player that I want to trade. 35-year-old Rafael Montero is having an all-star season, and as you can see, the Orioles do not have a closer, so they're pretty much the only team in baseball willing to make a move for a 35-year-old closer, and they're giving us back an 18-year-old center fielder. He was the only guy on our team with trade value, so we sim forward to August, where it is time to view our draft picks. I don't think we had the greatest draft ever, but I still felt pretty good about what we accomplished as I go in, and that's actually worse than I expected. We started off taking 2 top 4 players, and while they're both very high overalls, neither crack 90 potential, and it looks like the highest potential player in the class is 91 potential Michael Gonzalez. I am very excited about him as he has great power and should be our catcher of the future, but to be fair to the rest of our picks, the entire international class this year was really lacking in long-term projects, as we're seeing a lot of low potential players with very high floors. Starting at the top, Timmy Esparza was the obvious pick at number 1, and I do not regret it, as he's coming in at 75 overall and is certainly a blue chip level 5-tool player. Long term, I think I prefer him over Ezequiel Tovar, who seems to be regressing every year, but if we do decide to keep both, it's worth noting that Esparza has secondary positions at second and third base. After Timmy, we took starting pitcher Brian Castro, who is an 89 potential, 67 overall with a 63 walks per 9. That is a very good value at pick 38. He is the best starter we've drafted yet, and then after him, we finally took a closer with 82 potential, David Saucedo, who may not be super flashy, but comes in at 71 overall right out the gate. That is another good value pick, and after that, we finally took Michael Gonzalez, and I already talked about him, but I'm very excited to see what he can do. He was then followed up by another starting pitcher, David Villafuerte, who was simply too good of a value in the 4th round to pass on with 72 walks per 9, and while his ceiling is only 80 overall, I'm really not worried about it. Then in round 5, we took a shot in the dark going for Manny Zambrano, who unfortunately is only C potential, so it might not work out long term, but we will see what happens as we ended off with another C potential, this time a reliever. Definitely not a flashy draft, but overall the class was pretty weak, so I feel like we did the best with what we had. We are already seeing the returns from players like Ray Marte and Paco Chacon, who should be at the majors next year. So all things considered, I'm excited to add more talent to the organization. We finished the year with 48 wins, which is double our total from season 1, and without a doubt, Andrew Monasterio was our best player with a 263 average and a 724 OPS, so it's fair to say we found a strong piece for our future. It was also a good year for Ezequiel Tovar, but of course he keeps regressing and has not come anywhere close to his 2024 season. After those guys, the rest of our lineup played well enough to keep boosting their stats, including Ildemaro Vargas, who's 34 years old, but I might have to sign him to another deal. He has A potential and really developed his skills this season, and the same goes for Brian De La Cruz, so it is great to see a few positives in what was ultimately a rebuilding year, as going through the rest of our stats, there's not much else to know. Once again, with how bad we are, I don't think we're luring any big free agents like Freddie Peralta or Nelson Cortez Jr., so in wave number 1, the only new player I'm going after is Sir Anthony Dominguez, who's 32 years old with B potential and is coming off a solid year. We have a chance to earn the number 1 pick for the second year in a row, so I am crossing my fingers as that would change our franchise, but of course the chances are slim. We drop down 3 spots while the Blue Jays jump 9. That is unfortunate, but now to make things worse, I am not seeing much of anything in the Rule 5 draft, as none of these players are from Latin America, and it feels like the only guys who are really are not that great, as we're stuck taking a Jose Herrera in the first round. We got some very good players here last year, but this season we only drafted 4 guys, and that's why we really need a big splash in free agency as we get Dominguez. I'm actually feeling pretty confident going into season 3, and I did not expect that this early on in the rebuild, but the huge reason for that is we have 2 big outfielders coming up likely this season, and of course we just drafted Timmy Esparza as well, who's 75 overall at 21 years old. Also, looking at our depth chart, we're projected to get a lot better over the next 5 years, especially as all the players we draft come up to the show. Looking at our opening day lineup, things are not too different from where we left them, but the big change is Jose Miranda, who we signed in free agency, and this guy hits for very good contact. He's the change I'm most excited about, but most of this season's going to be about bringing up our young guys, and also seeing if we can develop guys like Ildemaro Vargas and Yanquiel Fernandez a little bit more. Also in the rotation, we added Waskari Noah, I think that's how you say that. You guys know I'm terrible at pronunciations, along with Jose Urquidy, and at the very least, we're going to see what these guys can do, as Herman Marquez is also in the final year of his deal. He's consistently been good for us, so there's a great chance we resign him, especially if he beats the Phillies. This Philadelphia team won 105 games last season, and apparently they have James Wood, as Marquez gives up the first run of the game and he's not getting any help. After the double, Marsh would score him, and the Mariachis are getting no hit as there is another flyout. This is not a good showing for our offense, as we still do not have a hit through 6 innings, so now we're in the 7th as there's a double. Thanks to Marquez in the pen, it is still 2-0, but unfortunately that was the most we could do, as Mexico embarrasses themselves on opening day. That is not an encouraging start for a team built on contact hitting, although we do win 2 games, and now we're in extras against Pittsburgh looking for a series win. No doubt it was a rough opening day, but we cannot allow one series to destroy our confidence, as with 2 outs, Vargas lays out, nice play. That sends us to inning number 12, where we have 2 on with 2 away, and Herrera clutches up to drive in the go-ahead run. That gives our new closer a 1-run lead, and Sir Anthony Dominguez is low-key a gem with 99 clutch. I found that pitch clutch is a very important stat for simming relievers, but of course we give up the run, and now one more can walk it off as Bohm goes deep into left field. That will sail all the way to the wall, where thankfully it's not gone. Not a good showing for our big free agent. As the bases are loaded with 1 away, they try to bunt, and that is a miracle. We might have just been bailed out, but now we need a tough throw to first base, and we are able to get it. So we're officially going to the 13th inning. What a crazy game that we're trying to end. The offense definitely has not been good, but we've clutched up every time we've needed to, as there's another blooper. So we have 2 guys on, and there's a back shot. Something is very wrong. If we cannot add an insurance run, Tovar goes the other way, sending this into right field to the wall, where it bounces off to clear the bases. Now with a 4-run lead, there's no way we're losing. We give up 1 and beat the Pirates. I was nervous after opening day, but it seems we're doing all right, as we are 5-4 after 9 games, and now we're checking out this draft for the first time, where we have the number 4 pick, but it might not matter, as the first 5 guys on the board are all from different regions. The first guy who's actually an option is right fielder Alberto Cano, and as you can see by the ratings, he is very much a boom or bust type player. I'll definitely scout him, but I want to check out options who are not corner outfielders, since we've already drafted quite a few, and one position we have not addressed yet is first base, and as you can see, there are 2 international guys in a row who both look pretty good. Unfortunately though, I speak too soon. This guy's from Japan, but Ponson is from Cuba. I really hope that one of those 2 guys is draftable, because looking at the rest of the first round, I'm not seeing many international guys from Latin America, so it seems that dropping in the lottery might not have hurt us after after all. After a good start, we are losing more games, but we're still hanging on, so these division series are going to be a big deal, as going back into scouting, the number 6 player in the draft is not that great. Right now, it seems our best option is Alvin Ponson, who's solid at best, but if he's the best we can get, I would not mind taking him because we have not drafted a long-term first baseman. It is definitely our weakest position, as Miranda is not playing well early on, but apparently the rest of our offense isn't doing too bad, as we're winning plenty of games and Miranda drives in a run. By this point in the rebuild, we should be beating the White Sox, as Yanquiel Fernandez sends us into the right center gap, and that will certainly break the tie as the defender goes diving. It's a 2-run double. That was a 5-run inning that gave them the lead and the win, so we're just 1 game back from 500 as we win the series. This team is exceeding my expectations in season number 3, and now we have a 2-run lead against the Orioles, but they have 2 guys on. Westberg might have just scored one of them, but the throw is in time. That is a crucial error that costs them the game, as the Mariachis win another game, but their hardest baseball is still in front of them, because Arizona and the Dodgers both look great, while the Padres are 500. On the scouting end of things, I'm already running out of position guys to look into, which is not great, but at least on the bright side, we found an absolute gem in Julio Castro from DR. I might take him, even though his walks per 9 is not good, and I really wish we could take Elijah Hurd instead, because he looks great, but he's from Massachusetts. This draft class really is not looking good for us, so it's very important that we're developing the players that are already on our team, but as you can see, the offense is not exactly playing well. For example, Brian De La Cruz is in second for RBIs, but he has an OPS under 600, while Andrew Monasterio and pretty much everybody else has taken a step back. To my surprise, our rotation is actually what's holding us together this season, as Antonio Senzatella is having a career year at age 32, and our new addition Yanoa is off to a strong start. Also, even though we saw him blow a lead against the Pirates, Sir Anthony Dominguez has been rock solid this year, and might even be our closer of the future. We'll see. Despite our continued lack of offense, we are still just 2 games behind the Padres, and now we have a chance to win a series against Texas, which does not happen. No matter what we do, it feels like we can't get back above 500, as we lose another series and are looking to rally against the Angels, but leave a runner on third. That means we are still tied up going into the 9th inning, so it once again seems we might be going to extras, but not so fast. This gets through. The winning runs on first and now second, but with 1 away, we need to be very careful of the double play, and Espinal drives us into right field. Forget about it, it's over. There's a walk-off win for the Mariachis, and even though 2 runs on 10 hits is not ideal, it was a big game for Espinal, who had 3 hits. That series win puts us at 500, and just imagine how much better we'll be when we get Paco Chacon and Ray Marte at the show. Marte specifically is absolutely on fire right now, and this guy can flat out hit, but of course we're manipulating his service time, waiting until June to call him up. This draft class just isn't working out for us, as these are the only guys I've scouted at positions, and to be honest, there's not many more guys who are worth it, as I have not found a single elite player early on in the draft, let alone a project in the back half. Third baseman Adrian Casto might be our last chance for position players, unless of course our discovery guys can step up. I did not think that a rebuild only using Latinos would turn out to be my hardest challenge, but here we are, as this may be the worst pitcher class I have ever seen, especially in the region we need. We are just 2 weeks away from calling up Ray Marte and Paco Chacon, but right now we have a winning record and a bit of a winning streak. We're 7-3 in our last 10 games, and we can keep our streak alive by sweeping a playoff team. We have a 1-run lead, so all we need to do is hold them off, but scoring another run would be even better, as their pitcher is all over the place loading the bases, but we line out. That is unfortunate, but I do trust Dominguez, who's having an all-star level season, but there's 2 walks, and this is not the way we want our streak to end. New York's in good position for the walk-off, but now they're down to their final out, and Dominguez gets them with the slider. We have busted out the brooms, and I'm not sure how long this will last, but this team is absolutely on fire right now, winning 5 in a row, including their 6th against Philadelphia. This all makes sense, as in just a matter of weeks, our offense has several guys above 700 OPS, and even the back end of the rotation is starting to pick up their slack. It looks like we finally found a late round player who might be worth drafting in Costo, and also our discovery scouts found their first position player of the draft, but he's terrible. Unfortunately, our win streak has come to an end as we lose a series to Philadelphia, but immediately get back on the horse against Washington, as we're down 1 in game 3, looking for the sweep, and Tovar just tied it up. He is having his best season of the rebuild so far, so I might not need to trade him. This is going to be a close play at the plate. The throw coming in, he's safe. We rally back to take a 1-run lead, but cannot add more, so it is all up to our bullpen to hold it down, as there's a walk, followed by 2 outs, and the triple. The back and forth continues going into the 8th inning, but there is a missile, as the whole team continues to look more confident at the plate, and that is crushed into left field. Goodbye. Ramon Arias with with the bomb, which secures us another series sweep. I know it's the Nationals, but we just scored 8 runs on 15 hits, including 5 in the final 3 frames. And now at 30-24, we should be in the wild card race. We absolutely are. We're 3 games up on San Diego. They might be our biggest rival for the rest of the season, which does make sense because San Diego is so close to the border. But after another week of scouting, Costo proves that he's a great late round option. Unfortunately though, no more infielders have been discovered, so I'm changing our tune to the outfield, and things have gotten so bad here that I'm scouting relievers, which I almost never do, so I'm curious what we find. We are 7 games above 500, but that could change very quickly as we're taking on the division leading Dodgers. And of course, they are absolutely stacked, signing Kyle Tucker, which they always seem to do in this game, so we might need some reinforcements. It is finally time to call up our first and second picks of the rebuild, as Paco Chacon and Ray Marte are ready for the big time. They're coming up to the show right now. Starting pitcher David Villafuerte was just drafted and is 18 years old, and for some reason, despite only pitching 19 innings in AA, the team is giving him a chance, which is definitely a head scratcher. Villafuerte will slide into the 4th spot in the rotation with that very high hits and walks per 9, but in my opinion, the biggest thing worth mentioning is this new look lineup, as Marte and Chacon are batting 7th and 8th respectively. They're gonna have their work cut out for them though, as they're going up against Yamamoto right off the bat, even though he's one of the Dodgers' worst starters at a measly 90 overall. We would kill for somebody this good. Here's the first career at bat of Ray Marte, and he singles for a base hit, and there's much more of that to come as Chacon strikes out. Along with Kyle Tucker, this Dodgers lineup has added William Contreras, Ozzie Albies, and Brenton Doyle, and as expected, they're not taking long to score. There's a home run. Despite calling up 2 of our best hitters, we have not scored a single run, but here's a single from Chacon, and the thing I'm most looking forward to him is he is a great base stealer. He reaches third as the bases are loaded, so not to get ahead of myself, we might be rallying. There's a run. We have a good chance to tie this game with the bases juiced and 1 away as we score another, and here is a full count to Miranda, tie game. The Dodgers' expensive bullpen is collapsing as there's another, so we've officially taken the lead with a 4-run inning and make it 6 as Ray Marte, making his debut, drives in 2 more. What a great debut for our young players, and what a win against the Dodgers, as we scored all of our runs in the 7th inning, and now it's time for Villafuerte's debut, which he loses. Not unexpected, but we are going to split the series, so somehow we got out of that series okay, but as you can see, our Discovery Scouts found 2 more players. This is the moment of truth, as we have not found a single good position player yet. Checking it out, and let's go! We discover the class's number 8 player in Bobby Riley, but unfortunately he's from Canada. We cannot catch a break. Thankfully for us though, the other guy, Craig Gonzalez, is from the Dominican Republic, and he would be a great addition to our team, so I'm gonna scout him. The Mariachis are fighting for a playoff spot, but now they're going up against the Padres, and if you remember, this is the team that is right behind us. It is not likely that both of us will make the playoffs with the way things are going, making every series against them more important. We lose the first game and also just got swept by Arizona, so we've lost 5 in a row, and I fear we're hitting a slump at the worst time possible as they take the lead in game number 3. This series was a must win, but instead we get swept, and I'm convinced we're cooked as we have another series against Arizona, but we do surprisingly well. We are barely holding on, just 2 games above 500 now, and as you can see, we have more snowflakes on our roster than a Facebook comment section. Thankfully though, the rookie Ray Marte is off to a very strong start in his debut, and he still has a lot of room for improvement, so I'm excited about the future. The same goes for Paco Chacon, who's not playing nearly as well, but is still making an impact, so I'm hopeful that these guys can grow their games together and become an elite duo in the outfield. After scouting Discovery center fielder Craig Gonzalez, it seems he's not the type of player I was hoping for, but nonetheless still a solid project, and sadly that might be the best we get in this draft, as I've only found one player who's even worth selecting in the later rounds, and that is of course Adrian Casto. If nothing else, our Discovery guys did a very good job of uncovering a couple relievers I'm very interested in, as it may not be a huge need, but I will not turn down good players. I'm also going to finish scouting Alvin Ponson because I'm still unsure of the player he's going to be, and we could really use a first baseman. Right now, my only goal is to finish 500 in the first half, because after a hot start, the Mariachis are really struggling. We just left 2 runners on base against the Athletics, but De La Cruz goes the other way to put runners at 2 and 3, so maybe now we can finally score, swing and a miss. That was great timing, but Miranda simply missed it, although he will make up for it with 2 RBIs, so Mexico has taken a late lead and Dominguez closes them out. That is another victory due to a late rally, and while it's easy to give most of the credit to our offense, it should really be going to our bullpen, which has been absolutely phenomenal. Our closer Sir Anthony Dominguez was an absolute value in free agency, signing for $2.7 million a year, and he currently leads the entire National League in saves with 27. This draft just got a whole lot more interesting as Alvin Ponson is now the 5th ranked player on my board, and while he's my favorite player on the board right now and my likely selection if he's available, there's also Claudio Bonilla if something goes wrong. Also, even though we drafted a catcher last year, there are 3 late round guys that I'd be very interested in if they turn out to be good. We have now done everything we can to prepare for this draft, so I'm simulating all the way to it. I cannot remember a time that I've had fewer players on my draft board than this one, but at least we have a plan for our first pick, and that's to take Alvin Ponson. And if he's not available, I will take Julio Castro just as trade bait, but of course the reason I do not want him is the walks per 9. It's terrible. Then after that, I really don't know what I'm gonna do, as there are not a lot of good 2nd and 3rd round prospects in this draft, so if anything, I might reach for Adrian Castro because I definitely don't want to lose him. Being realistic, Alvin Ponson should not go before the 4th pick, but I've seen crazier things happen in MLB The Show as the first pick comes in and it's not him. We are full sending as there's another pitcher, and there's just one more pick to go. It is not Ponson. This will be the easiest selection I've ever made. We're pulling the trigger. If Julio Castro somehow falls to the 2nd round, he will be my selection, but I'm really not expecting to get him, so I'm targeting Carlos Diaz instead. Simming to my next selection, it seems both of them are gone, so we get extremely unlucky, although there's still another pitcher on the board, and even though he's fallen a couple picks, he should be about mid-80s potential. Right now, my options are either take him, a reliever, or reach for Casto, and I don't think I need to take him this early on, so I'm going with the best player on my board, Valdez. He should be a solid developmental guy, which is really all we need, and simming to our next pick, our board has not changed. Even though there are other starting pitchers on the board, I think the best move here is to take Adrian Castro, who's been one of my favorite project players for a while, and I don't want to miss out. Now with our next pick though, our board has not changed, and I'm trying to take a high floor starting pitcher, especially because this class is not very good, and even though Manzanillo's the better player, I like Malanca's potential a lot better. He's the selection. Then in round 4, it is only going to be discovery guys left on the board, and I completely forgot about Craig Gonzalez. He would be a great late round flyer. I'm moving him all the way up. However, simming to round 4, of course he is gone. I cannot believe my luck, and now I have no idea what to do. It is pretty much all discovery guys left on the board at this point, which is unfortunate, although I did forget about this catcher Manny Ramirez, who's 21 years old, and we could really use a long-term backup at that spot, so I think this worked out. My board is almost empty in round 5, so I'm going with the best available player, taking a really good discovery closer, and simming to the end, it looks like I'm taking another. Out of these 2 players, Ozuna has way more potential, and I feel like if we get Fernandez, he's never gonna play, so why not trust our scouts and go with the best player on the board to end our draft. You can usually tell it's a bad draft when you're forced to take 2 closers and a bad pitcher to close things out, but now at the All-Star break, we are a game under 500, and our offense certainly has a lot of room for improvement. There's a few moves I want to make, but first I need to clear some space, and who better to get rid of than Herman Marquez, who's still having a good year, but not necessarily a great one, and he's in the last year of his deal. This year, the Rays are competing for the playoffs and could really use an upgraded starting pitcher, so we are trading Marquez for the 2nd time of the franchise, this time for Jefferson Cuero. He's surprisingly just one of 5 Latino players on their roster, and they'll take this 1-for-1, so we get the deal done, and now we're replacing him with another one of our top prospects, this past year's 1st round pick, Brian Castro, who's very good. Additionally, we are also calling up Albert Fernandez, who is dominating in Double-A, and even though he has C potential, that walks per 9 is deadly, so I'm calling him up to be our long reliever. That means our new look rotation now has 3 rookies in it, which is very exciting. So now I'm curious to see how this team does as we lose 3 games in a row against the Mets before winning 3 against Washington. Our record is finally back up to 500 at the beginning of August, which of course is great news on its own, but that is great timing as it's time to view our draft picks. This draft was a complete dumpster fire, so I'm honestly just hoping that Alvin Ponson is okay, along with maybe a couple other players as we enter the screen, and that is a great start. We found another 70 overall position player, except Ponson has 94 potential, which is awesome, as he's going to give us another left-handed, very strong bat that I'm excited about. Then with our next selection, we took a flyer on Manuel Valdez, which sort of worked out. His potential is 83, which is pretty similar to what I thought it was going to be, but of course he's pretty raw at 56 overall and needs some more work. Then we took Adrian Castro, who I really thought was going to be a bit better than this with potential in the 90s, but nevertheless, high 80s is always accepted, and I'm excited that we got another 18-year-old project player. Then immediately after him, we took 23-year-old starter Felipe Malanca, who is an 82 potential, but with this walks per 9, he is much more fit to start than Valdez. It was not a good starting pitching class, so I'm glad we got two guys that are at least solid. But after that, we struck gold in the 4th round with Manny Ramirez, who may be 21 years old, but he has 97 potential and could be a future superstar. He's coming in with pretty decent defense, but that offense needs a ton of work, and it'll be a long time before he ever sees the field. Then to end things off, we took two closers, starting with Kevin Stanford, who is an insane value. Long term, he is not going to be our closer, but is a really good reliever, as he's already pro ready and should contribute next year. Then we ended things off with Carlos Ozuna, who is a high potential and definitely has the ceiling to be a closer long term. That was a solid draft, especially considering what we had to work with, but now in August, we are losing a ton of games. We are so far below 500. I actually believed we could compete for the playoffs, but it seems like everybody on the team has fallen off, including Ezequiel Tovar, but alongside him, Yanquiel Fernandez has consistently been on a downfall, while our rookies Ray Marte and Paco Chacon need a bit more adjustment time. Also, much to my surprise, it has not been a good rookie year for our pitchers, as I really thought I was upgrading with Villafuerte and Castro, but they have been terrible. In September, we hit a big win streak, but definitely not enough to make the playoffs, as we finished 76 and 86, which was 32 games back from the Dodgers, but was also 15 games above the Giants, which is huge. This was a disappointing season for a number of ways, but especially because the 3rd NL wildcard spot was not competitive, as we may have finished 10 games below 500, but were 4 games out of the spot. We've improved every year in franchise history, but now it's so essential that the rest of our offense continues to develop, because the future of our team has been called up to the show, and if they're not good enough, we are going to have a bad time. Going into the offseason, we have to get better, so I'm going after 2 free agents, bringing back Santiago Espinal, who did have a pretty good season, but the big fish is Isaac Paredes, who would be our biggest signing of all time. He did not have a good year, but he hits for pretty good power at 3rd base, so I'm hoping we can give both of them a lowball offer as we simulate a few weeks, but he's still at 45% interest. Thankfully, Espinal is coming back, but now I'm interested in seeing who else is on the market, as there is Luis Garcia, who is 31 years old with a pretty solid walks per 9, and on top of that, he's not asking for too much money. 15.7 million is pretty reasonable for a player of his caliber, but of course, another player we could consider is German Marquez, who wants $3 million less. It would be hilarious to sign Marquez after trading him again, but at least for now, I want to see if Garcia would be interested in joining the squad. I also put a very good closer, Duran, on the board, but it doesn't look like we're going to get him as we sim forward, and of course he signs with the Dodgers. He is staying in our division, but I want to see if we can get another closer like Alexis Diaz, so he joins our board along with Paredes and Garcia, who are finally getting their first offers. Thankfully, after simming, Paredes signs, so now we're just waiting on Garcia, as here comes the decision, and he is also joining. We have added 2 quality players to our team, which was desperately needed, so this offseason very well might be done, but if we can land Alexis Diaz, that would be the cherry on top. We're a low market team, so I'm offering him a low market deal, and if he accepts, this might be the perfect offseason. Here it comes, and let's go! 3 years, 7.7. That is another big addition, as he's now the best player on our team, but in case you were wondering, Sir Anthony Dominguez is still our closer. He won reliever of the year. I did not know that, but with 44 saves, I suppose it makes sense. So now if Diaz works out, we will have at least 2 elite relievers, which is awesome. I really feel like this is our year to make the playoffs if our second year guys, Paco Chacon and Ray Marte, can step up, as we're hitting them pretty high up in the lineup, along with new addition Isaac Paredes. Then in the rotation, we are also counting on a trio of second year guys in Villafuerte, Castro, and Fernandez, along with our new addition Luis Garcia, who should be an upgrade over Marquez. It is time for Season 4 opening day, where we're going up against Paul Skeens and the Pirates, and that is a great start, as Chacon hits a leadoff single, but no one could score him, so we're going back to work, and Brian De La Cruz goes deep. It only took us 2 innings to score off one of the best pitchers in baseball, as our new ace, Garcia, has been great. What a catch. That will give him 5 scoreless innings, but the Mariachis have had no offense ever since that big home run. It seems this game will come down to the wire, as our bullpen is in the game with 2 on, but fortunately, they're locking in, and there's a dinger, and we start the season strong with a shutout victory. It would be a big deal if we can win games early on this year, because we could get even better with some big-time contributors coming up to the show, like Alvin Ponson. We just drafted him in the 1st round, but he's already the number 3 prospect in the league, and while his call-up is not a sure thing, a guy like Timmy Esparza certainly is. He's an 80 overall. Before they come up, though, I am gonna rename them, as one of my channel members submitted the name Speedy Gonzalez, which I feel like is pretty fitting for Esparza. Also, Alvin Ponson is now gonna be called Leo Flores. Outside of those guys, there are some other players starters waiting to be called up, like starting pitchers Arturo Gonzalez and Lou De La Cruz, along with closers Kevin Stanford and David Saucedo. After starting 1-0, we go on a bit of a losing skid, so we're 2-5, looking to recover against the Astros, but that is a bases-loaded double play. That means we could be on our way to another loss as we're down by 1 run, but somehow we didn't allow another in that inning, and De La Cruz ties it up. Good luck was on our side, so it's not over yet, but our offense still has not shown up as it's the bottom of the 9th. There is De La Cruz, who stepped up in every game we hopped into, and another base hit puts the winning run at second, but there's a double play. Early on, this is not the team I was hoping for. As our bullpen continues to bail us out, this could be the walk-off though. Paredes goes foul. He was so close to ending it, but unfortunately he comes up empty, and I am shocked we are still tied as Tovar drives this into left center. That will advance the runner. I am ready for this to be over, and of course that's a grounder, so we keep going as Patino finally gives up a run. We have wasted 3 opportunities to walk this off as that somehow gets through, so runners are at the corners for Chacon. All he needs is a single or a sac fly. He gets it done. We are still alive, now looking for the victory as Marte keeps us on the ground. It clears the infield, the runner's rounding third, and there's a walk-off. It certainly was not pretty, but a win's a win, and at the very least I hope that gives us some confidence and positive momentum moving forward as we're checking out the draft for the first time, and we have the 13th selection. Starting off, I'm scouting a bit of a boomer bust player in Phil Ordonez because we're pretty far in this rebuild, and I don't think any long-term projects can develop in time for the end. After scouting, we will continue forward after our big win as we win a series against Houston and Pittsburgh, which does get us back to 500 after 12 games. Huge credit to Ray Marte and Ezequiel Tovar for keeping our offense alive, and our new ace Luis Garcia is certainly living up to his new contract. Now the Mariachis are in a 9th inning game against the Braves, but there's a double play, so we're going to extras where a run still has not been scored, at least until now. Vargas gives us the lead. Winning this game would give us our first winning record of the season as Dominguez is trying to close him out, but the bases are loaded for Ronald Acuna Jr. That is crushed into center field. It stays in the yard, but the tying run scores. That is officially a blown save for last year's reliever of the year as De La Cruz drives this into right, giving us back the lead. But of course, it would be nice to have another insurance run, and Vargas strikes again. Scoring 3 runs on 8 hits is not ideal, but I'll take it because we have a winning record going into another round of scouting, and while Edgar Baez is a decent prospect, I think I'm more interested in Damian Spears. We've drafted pretty well over the last 3 seasons, so this point in the rebuild is all about developing our own players, and it seems we're doing a good job of that as we're in 3rd place. This is a tough division, so we need all the wins we can get, including another sweep against the Angels as Ballesteros, our rookie catcher, ends it. We are proving we are the kings of extra innings, and I really think our bullpen deserves all the credit for that as we've made them one of the best units in all of baseball with Sir Anthony Dominguez and Alexis Diaz. We are on fire at the end of April as we just beat the Diamondbacks 18-1, and this was an insane performance by pretty much everybody. Arizona was a competitive team last year, and we're looking to sweep them as this error at second ties the game, so this could be another one that comes down to the wire, but Diaz gives up a run. Now it's time to see if our offense can keep scoring as there's a single, so the tying run is now on first base, but there's a double play. We've been so inconsistent the entire year, and Arizona puts this one on ice, so this division series ends in a tie. Immediately after, we're going up against San Diego as we win the first game and the third game, but if you remember, they were our biggest competition last year, so we want the series victory. We are tied up in the 9th, and I'd really like to avoid extra innings because I feel like we've been there way too often, and right as I say that, we hit into a double play. We cannot catch a break, but thankfully our bullpen is very good, so we have a chance to end this right now as Tovar crushes this into left field, going back, and it's not far enough. No walk-off yet, but that does advance the winning run to third base, so De La Cruz can drive him in, so we win another series, and now we are only 3.5 games back of the Dodgers and leading a competitive wild card race. Even though we're in a good spot, we still have so much more to prove as we are facing the Dodgers next week, but before we get there, I want to check in on scouting where we found a couple good players, including one of the best discovery players I've ever seen, including one of the best discovery pitchers I've ever seen in Tommy Tan, but we can't draft him. That is really unfortunate, but at least we can draft the number 2 guy, Moses Marrero, but he is not nearly the same caliber, so I feel like we're missing out. Right now, Sebastian Orozco, another pitcher, is my favorite first round option as he's number 6 on the board, and currently him and a couple other pitchers are the only options as I've had no luck with position players. And now it is time to take on the Dodgers as we actually win the first game and the second game, which is pretty unexpected, but it does make a little bit more sense because a lot of our offense are on hot streaks. Yanquiel Fernandez is having a bounce back season coming off the bench, but our real MVPs have been Marte, Tovar, and the newcomer Isaac Paredes. Additionally, Luis Luis Garcia is a legit Cy Young candidate, while one of our other second-year pitchers, Brian Castro, is having a bounce-back season after struggling a bit last year. The Mariachis are currently 5th in the league in total hits, but in terms of team ERA, they are at number 1. They have come out of nowhere, sweeping the best team in baseball, and I cannot believe it. Shout out to Brian Castro for holding them to 1 run all game. Everything is coming together as our Discovery Scouts found 2 new guys. I'm very interested in checking them out, as we do need position players. One of them is not very good at all, so I'm holding out hope for the last one, who's literally the worst prospect I've ever seen, and he's from Canada. I think the most exciting thing about this season is we're very close to bringing up Speedy Gonzalez, who is absolutely raking at AAA, and just like our prospects last year, I'll be waiting until the beginning of June to do that for service time, and that can't come soon enough as we're 1 game behind LA. I'm bringing him up as soon as I possibly can, but we're winning without him. But now I think it's finally time to pull the trigger. His overall's gone up over the last couple weeks, so I'm confident we have a good player on our hands as he joins Tovar in the middle infield. There's also last year's first-round pick, Leo Flores, who is drastically improving already, and while I'm not going to call him up right now, Jose Miranda should definitely be sweating, as he's not really playing well enough to keep his spot. With a new player in our lineup, we are unstoppable as we've won 6 games in a row, and this big win streak puts us above the Dodgers. I'm glad our team is playing well on the field because this scouting process has been absolutely brutal, but I'm still hopeful as we've discovered a new player, outfielder Lee, who looks pretty good, but I will not be able to draft him. This game really needs international free agency, as I have barely been able to find any good Latino players, but it seems all the ones I drafted earlier on are more than making up for it. The Dodgers are looking for revenge as we beat them last month, and right now they have a 2-run lead in the 7th as Speedy Gonzalez flies out. That is unfortunate, but we still have 2 innings to rally back as our best hitter Ray Marte drives in a run, and he's on second base for Isaac Paredes, who's able to get this through the infield to tie the game. That is a big deal, especially because I trust our bullpen a lot more than theirs, so I really like our chances to win this, but we might be going to extras. There are 2 outs in the 9th inning, but they left a slider hanging up over the middle, and our catcher Luis Torrens sends it to space. That is another statement series win for the Mariachis, who are in firm possession of first place. Just warning you guys, I think we're about to bomb this draft harder than my bathroom after a trip to Taco Bell, as outside of some talented pitchers at the top of the board, there's really not much to choose from. My current plan is to take Sebastian Orozco, who has a very good walks per 9 as a starting pitcher, and with his high floor, there might actually be a chance for him to contribute before the end of the rebuild. However, we do need him to fall all the way to number 13, which is a slim chance, although he is still available. Glad that something's going right. Simming to our next selection, it's nice to see that Moses Marrero, a Discovery guy, is still on the board, and while I did not expect that, he is too good to pass up at this spot. Just remember these first 2 picks, because I think the rest are going to be pretty bad from here on out, as we sim to number 48, and this closer is still on my board, although I just saw now he's from Canada. That really sucks. I really like Steve Soriano, but he's definitely more of a project player, which I'm not really interested in right now, as we might only have a couple years left of the rebuild, so I'm going to take this closer who has a lot more upside. This is actually going better than I expected, and simming to our next selection, I don't think anybody else got taken off the board. That is a big deal, as I'm seeing a ton of Discovery guys, and honestly, since he's still here, why not just go for Soriano? He's probably going to have good potential, and we can trade him. I think that's the right selection, as pretty much everybody else on the board has a pretty low floor. As we move to round 4, and I am out of Discovery options, so I'm taking another project player. This one's a first baseman. Just like last year, it looks like we're closing out the draft with 2 relievers, and while it's certainly not ideal, this actually went much better than I expected. We are 62-34 going into the break, and because of our success, I'm expecting quite a few all-stars, as Sir Anthony Dominguez will almost certainly be in the game, along with Diaz, who we signed in the offseason. However, I am curious if we're going to have any offensive players, as I do see Isaac Paredes at number 5, but aside from him, it looks like we're coming up empty. That is unfortunate considering guys like Ray Marte and Ramon Arias have been great all year, and our catcher Luis Torrens is also hitting .290. Even though the voters don't like us, it's clear that we're playing good baseball, and that is honestly more than enough, as it seems we have a very well-balanced offense. Then in the rotation, it is a very similar story, as Luis Garcia and Brian Castro continue to dominate, while David Villafuerte and Huáscar Ynoa are not far behind them. Add in that our bullpen has 2 all-stars, and it's easy to see why we're winning all the games that we have. Because of our success, I'm interested in making a splash move at the deadline, but unfortunately, it seems the trade block is pretty weak. That is a little bit disappointing, but I just realized with all the talent we have in the farm, we don't need to make a trade to add to the team. 19-year-old closer Kevin Stanford was just drafted last year, but is already 81 overall, so it seems the best bullpen in baseball just got a lot better. At the beginning of August, we are firmly in the division lead, but but now it's time to view our draft picks, and I'm actually very interested in seeing how this turned out. This was hands down the weakest class we've seen so far, but it seems we made the most of it, starting off strong with 2 discovery pitchers and a closer before taking 2 project guys and ending off with 2 relievers. That is awesome. Starting at the top, Sebastian Orozco is the perfect combination of a high ceiling and high floor, as he's coming in with 67 walks per 9 right off the bat. Even though I like to take position players, I think he probably would have been the selection either way, as he's just that good. And the same thing goes for Moses Marrero, who might have been a little bit overrated as the number 2 player on the board, but is still a guy we can develop. Then closers are always good to draft, but it seems Brito was a little bit raw, as there wasn't a true gem in this class, but ultimately still a good value in the second round, as we then took Steve Soriano, who already has 92 potential and could take Tovar's job down the line. After him, our board was very close to empty, so we didn't get the best quality players, but nonetheless, this was still a solid draft. There are 2 months left in the season, and we have a commanding division lead, so I'm just gonna simulate as much as I can, as we are still winning so many games. We are 92-48 entering September, so we are nearly guaranteed to make the playoffs, and that makes sense as this offense just continues to get better and better, as Ray Marte has emerged as our best player with Paco Chacon not too far behind him. Then there's Speedy Gonzalez, who definitely got off to a slow start, but he's starting to figure things out, which could be very scary for the rest of the league. It has also been a fantastic season for our young pitching staff, which leads the entire league in ERA, as second-year players Brian Castro and David Villafuerte have hit their stride at 19 years old, and they're 2 of the best players on the staff alongside Luis Garcia. Our bullpen is also still ridiculous, as Sir Anthony Dominguez is having one of the best closer seasons I have ever seen, and as a result, he's gotten massive boosts to all of his stats. This is crazy. If you find a reliever with a high clutch rating, they're pretty much guaranteed to be a good closer. But don't forget about Alexis Diaz, who's having a pretty solid year, while rookie Kevin Stanford still has not given up a single run. This team is already very good, but they could be getting even better, as for September call-ups, we are finally calling up one of the top prospects in the system, Adael Amador. He's been quietly developing in AA for the entire series, but I think it's finally time to give him a chance. We're calling him up. The Mariachis are looking to clinch a playoff spot, but they're up against the Dodgers, and even though they're having a down year, they are still a dangerous super team, but we have Brian Castro. The second-year pitcher has been one of the best in the National League, especially in the second half, and Ezequiel Tovar just extended our lead. That no-doubter got Yamamoto pulled out of the game. This could be another dinger as Paredes lets it fly, but it stays in the yard for another RBI. We've had the Dodgers number all season long, as that's a big win, and with that, we have officially clinched a playoff spot. That is a huge deal for a young team that's looking for 100 wins, and there it is, as we finished the year with 105 wins, which of course was the best record in baseball. But I think the biggest news for us is that the Dodgers did not make the playoffs. Just to show you guys how crazy this is our roster and this is theirs, as their team is stacked with 90+ overalls, which I think just goes to show that overall is not everything. When we faced off against them, we saw just how bad their bullpen was, and they lost them a lot of games. And on the flip side, our bullpen was the best in baseball, which honestly is probably part of why we're here. Specifically, adding rookie Kevin Stanford was the best move we could have made, as both his ERA and his WHIP were under 1, and in the final 2 months of the year, he only gave up 1 run. That is insane. Additionally, we signed Isaac Paredes in the offseason, which turned out to be a fantastic move, as he led our team in home runs and RBIs, and ultimately became a feature bat along with Ray Marte, Paco Chacon, and most recently, Speedy Gonzalez. I think we were a playoff team before we called up Speedy, but he made us even better and pushed us over 100 wins, as him and Ezequiel Tovar formed one of the best middle infields in the league. As a result of our offensive breakthrough, we finished second in the league in hits, but I think the bigger story is last time we checked, we were in first place for ERA, and that has not changed at all. We really struck gold in free agency with Luis Garcia, who has earned every penny of his $11 million per year contract, and that is a big deal as we have not really been active through free agency, as we're using the Rockies' modest budget. As our ace, Garcia had an ERA under 3 and probably should have been considered for the Cy Young, but I also think you could make that same argument with David Villafuerte and Brian Castro, who were both electric. Castro specifically has a higher potential, so he saw his stats go up a lot more, but at the same time, Villafuerte also had pretty good gains. Another guy who deserves a lot of credit is Huascar Ynoa, who in all of my time playing franchise has never worked out for me, but for some reason that has changed in this franchise, as he's put together 2 good seasons in a row. The weakest link in the rotation was definitely Albert Fernandez, who did struggle at times, but all things considered, an ERA of 4.25 is not too bad from your worst pitcher. Then, as I mentioned before, our bullpen bullpen was absolutely electric, and with 62 saves, I'm fully expecting Sir Anthony Dominguez to repeat as reliever of the year. However, along with him, Jose Hernandez and Nabil Crismatt played a key role in our rotation, along with Diaz and Stanford. Checking out awards, our team was way too balanced to have an MVP, but I'm a little surprised about the Cy Young, as I feel like these numbers were not too far off from Garcia or Castro's. It feels like we should have at least earned consideration, as Dylan Cease really did not have a great year. But moving on to batting title, Ray Marte came in third place behind two very quality hitters. As I speculated before, Sir Anthony Dominguez is your reliever of the year for the second straight year, and looking at the stats, it was not even close. Let me remind you, I signed him to a 3-year, $2.7 million deal, so it's fair to say we definitely got our money's worth, as we had two finalists for Rookie of the Year. Even with the Dodgers out of the playoffs, this will not be an easy run, as we are starting off the postseason against the Atlanta Braves, and they are very good. In this universe, they have signed Tariq Skubal to pair up with Spencer Strider, which is a nightmare, as by terrible luck, our first playoff game is against one of the best arms in the league. As we're trailing by 1 run in the 4th with 2 guys on, Tovar makes good contact to Acuna. That is a huge bummer, so now we need Garcia to hold this down, which he does, so at least we still have a chance in the 7th inning, as Tovar is back up and drives in the tying run. If we can beat Tariq, we can beat anybody, and this could be our chance, as there are 2 on for Speedy Gonzalez. This dribbler goes up the middle and somehow passes through the infield for another run. This is not a drill. Skubal is out of the game, so hopefully now we can do some real damage, as Marte has runners at the corners but hits into a double play. That is so unfortunate. Another run would have definitely sealed it, but now we're calling on the best closer in the game, who's in a bit of trouble but gets out of it. Huge shout out to Luis Garcia for hanging in there, as we strike first in the series, but game 2 is tied. Unfortunately, the Mariachis leave the bases loaded and the Braves score, so now their backs are against the wall, but there's an RBI single. That is a big deal, and now Ray Marte gives us the lead, so this is looking like another close one, but with the bases loaded, Miranda drives in 2 more. No team in baseball is as good as the Mariachis in late game situations, as they lock down another victory, and they now just need 1 more to move on to the NLCS, but Spencer Strider's on the mound, and this one will not be easy. They're already down 2-0, but cut into the lead, and in the 4th inning, they have a big opportunity with 2 on, and this is just not hit well. Now it is all up to Miranda, who scored the 2 runs in last game, and he delivers another single. This one ties it up. It is still anybody's game, and there's 2 runs followed by 2 more, so this Mariachis team is trying to make a statement, sweeping a team with Skubal and Strider. Huge shout out to Villafuerte for ultimately pitching a good game, as the 19-year-old outplays Spencer Strider, and we move on to the next round. Without the Dodgers, our path to the World Series is easier than I thought, as the New York Mets are the last team standing in our way, and to be honest, they're really not that great. Meanwhile, the Mariachis are red hot and still have not lost a playoff game, and we have our best pitcher back on the mound, but I speak too soon. New York is shutting us out, but here's a home run as we finally break the shutout, and with 2 on, Paco sends this deep into right center field. He is not a power hitter, but this goes back to the wall, and off of it, that's gonna score a run. What a play from our star center fielder, but his partner in crime, Ray Marte, comes up empty, so we're still tied up in the 8th inning, looking for our first lead. However, I am definitely feeling confident, because right now they cannot hit the plate, and as we've seen all year, our bullpen is our biggest strength. Speedy Gonzalez going for the grand salami, and although it does come up short, he clears the bases. That was a 2-out, 3 RBI double from our rookie shortstop, as the Mexico Mariachis are still undefeated in the playoffs. Not much has gone wrong for them, as Speedy Gonzalez gives us the lead, as he continues to be the MVP of this series, and a sac fly just gave us another run. With 2 innings to go, this should be a pretty comfortable lead for our bullpen, but I spoke too soon. It is now 3-2, so we could really use an insurance run, and after an intentional walk, the bases are loaded. Ballesteros can be the hero, but he strikes out looking, and being real with you guys, I thought the slider would drop, so I'm very lucky our closer is a beast. We have a 2-0 lead, so I'm gonna simulate the next game, which we win, so this team remains undefeated in the playoffs, but maybe not for long. This has been a rough start for Villafuerte, as we are down 7-0, but there's 3 runs, and to my surprise, this game is not over yet, as we just drive in another run. Jose Miranda has come up big before, but with the bases loaded, he fails, so despite a thrilling comeback, we lose our first playoff game, but we're off to a great start. In the 7th inning, we have a 4-1 lead, and Vargas goes yard, so the Mexico Mariachis win the series 3-1 and move on to the big show. They're National League champs in their 4th year of existence, and we'll be facing off against the Red Sox or the Mariners, who I always seem to play, and history repeats itself. Of course, as an MLB The Show creator who's also a longtime Seattle Mariners fan, I'm kinda convinced the devs are intentionally doing this best to me, as they have an 88 overall in single A. We dodged that bullet. But of course, the main fear with Seattle is their pitching is extremely good, although not as good as it usually is. If we can break through George Kirby, I will have a ton of confidence, but the Mariners strike first, and in the 6th inning, it is still a 1-run game. This is our best chance to score all game, but they get us choked up, so I'm starting to lose hope, but with 1 on, there's a single up the middle. This could be our chance as George is out of the game, but unfortunately we pop it up and ultimately get shut out by Seattle. Losing the first game of the series definitely doesn't feel good, but now we're tied up at 0 apiece in the 6th, so as expected when you play Seattle, this has been an absolute pitcher's duel, and there's a sac fly. We have scored the first run of the game, and Castro's still in the 8th, so we might pull off an absolute sweaty as Dominguez closes them out. We have tied the series with his 7th save of the postseason, as each side has now won a 1-0 game. Whoever wins the 3rd game is very likely to win the whole thing, so the Mariachis are looking to strike first against Brian Wu with 2 guys on base. That flyout advances runners to the corners, and while Miranda does get a piece of this, it will not get down, so it is still 0-0 in the 4th inning as we cannot get anything going. At least on the bright side though, neither can Seattle as Tovar finally drives in the first run of the game, although that's a nice throw, he is out. There's no way. I have never seen this many 1-0 games, but finally a dinger from Marte, as our best hitter delivers when we needed him, and that's another deep fly out to the track. If this score doesn't change, I'm gonna be amazed, but there's a solo shot, so after 2 1-0 games, it is 1-1. I do not think the world's ready for 2 runs scored in a baseball game, as we're really pushing boundaries in game 3, going to extra innings. 9 innings was not enough, but there's a walk-off home run as we simulate one play and it turns into disaster. We may have met our match in the World Series as we are so close to the Mariners, but they just barely have the edge over us. So while it's been a great year, this might not be the season we win it all, as I'm going to simulate game 4, we are still in this. In a crazy display of offense, we managed to put up 10 runs, so it seems the series will come down to the wire as we tie it up against George Kirby, and now we have a chance to take the lead, but we pop it up. All I'm asking is that Brian Castro holds on, good job, so we're going back to business, getting 2 aboard. This is a big moment for Isaac Paredes, who drives this the other way. That will give us the lead, so now we just need our bullpen to be as good as they've been all season long. There's a couple walks, so we have a chance to put this game on ice. Miranda into left center field. It is grand salami time. What a play from our first baseman to give us a 5-run lead, as we are now 1 game away from winning the World Series. This turnaround could not have come at a better time, as I truly thought our offense was down for the count, but they have rallied to win 2 games in a row. We are looking to close strong with our best pitcher on the mound, and there's a 2-run shot, so our offense produces against Bryce Miller, but our bullpen's trying to make it close. It is the 8th inning as we are simming every at-bat, and we get out of it, but even with baseball's best closer, I'd really like some run support, and that is not it. This is a tough job for Dominguez, but fortunately, he already has 1 out on the board and make it 2. He is just 1 strike away from winning the World Series, and as you can see, he wants to throw the sinker as Ward fouls it off, so now we're going for the outside fastball. The pitch comes in, it's outside. Here's a full count to Taylor Ward. We are throwing the slider, 3-2, pitch comes, he does not swing, and Mexico are World Series champs. I created a brand new MLB franchise in Mexico and rebuilt their team, only signing players from Latin America, and won them a World Series in 4 years. I really want to make more custom teams just like this one, so let me know if you guys have any suggestions, and as always, like, comment, subscribe, and watch more of my content right here.